without further ado, Mr. Kant, let me come to you. We've already, I mentioned some of the key campaigns you led. And I think what we heard again and again today was marketing, marketing, marketing. We have the assets. You realized that early on. As you reflect on your journey, what are some of the structural changes you think India has made in its journey towards branding itself? And where are some of the gaps that you still think we need to fill?
Well, first and foremost, the structural reforms that have been made, I'll look at the future. There's no point looking at the past. So first and foremost, I think the government of India needs to spend about, to my mind, about 25,000 crores in marketing India in the next 3 years. My strong view is because India is buying 2,000 aircrafts. Now, 2,000 aircrafts means that you're already, you will have Indians flying abroad. You'll be doing outbound, not doing inbound unless and until you don't promote market India. Also, I'm a great believer that promotion and marketing should be of a very upper end of the market. It should be really high value dollar class. So your niche, your promotion must be very top class. It should be very niche. You should get the finest creative directors to create your brand and really work for the upper end of the market. That's my view, that instead of doing outbound, so many craft being procured, you'll end up doing outbound. Number three, I think over the years, the destinations that have been selling are Rajasthan and Kashmir to the international market. Now the level of satisfaction there is very high. You need to create at least 5 circuits from the point of arrival to the point of departure, where you have a unique experience. To my mind, Madhya Pradesh offers that, but Madhya Pradesh has not been able to take that to a very high level of experiential tourism. To my mind, Karnataka has that. Karnataka has some very good resorts also, and they need to promote and brand themselves. So the states now need to get into the act and create the unique experience from the point of arrival to the point of departure. That's the third point I want to make. At least 5 states of India, the Buddhist circuit on the eastern part of India, Madhya Pradesh, because of monsoons, and it has all the product. It has wildlife, it has heritage, it has everything. So does Karnataka. Actually, Kerala doesn't have any archaeological sites. It's still a great experiential product. But you need at least 5 more states to create from the point of arrival to the point of departure. You need circuit around them, which can be top class. And that would mean top class guides, top class resorts, really great experiences. And the last point I really want to make is that India has now created some good convention centers. So Yashobhoomi is top class. Yashobhoomi should quickly be backed. By the intention was to have about 13, 14 hotels there. I think some have been put out to bid, but all others should be put out for bid quickly, because convention, meetings and centers, convention and exhibition will be a huge market for the future. So that's critical to my mind. That's very critical. One last point I want to make is that for purposes of marketing, the government needs to create a tourism board which should be outside the government, so that the private sector plays a key role in branding and marketing India. And that should be partly financed by there should be a partly financed by the government, and I would say partly financed by the private sector, so that you have long sustained marketing should not be dependent only on government financing over a period of time.
Thank you for those very clear sort of objectives the government should drive. Mr. Billa, let me come to you. Of course, the budgets have been going up for tourism, but really, where do you see that last mile? I think a few points he made. If you think of Madhya Pradesh, for example, we have the forests, you have the temples, but that last mile connectivity on infrastructure is usually where we lose out on the luxury tourist. Are you all thinking about some of those circuits from that particular aspect? And second, really, where can private money flow in to support some of your initiatives?
So let me start from what Mr. Kanta said. He spoke about these 1,500 aircrafts and how this is going to push outbound market down. And I think it's important for us to also get a sense of what the topography looks like. So our domestic demand is on fire, and it's basically elbowing out international. So if we look at the numbers today, we have surpassed 3 billion domestic tourist visits, 40% growth in 1 year in the previous year, large part of it due to Kumbh. So I suspect that it will stabilize a little bit going forward. But the truth is that because of Make in India and several things, for the past 10 years, India has been the largest growing, fastest growing, large economy, which put money in the pockets of people. Travel has picked up, but supply is just not keeping up. So if you look at the numbers today, you have 20 million people coming into India, and we earn 32 billion in terms of foreign exchange. But you have 30 million people going out of the country who are spending $35 billion. So today, tourism is a next net export loser for the country. And the outbound number is rising faster than the inbound number. So I think unless we build sustainable demand, and Mr. Khan spoke about how we need to strengthen the supply side. The industry estimates that there are about 180,000 branded hotel rooms in the country today, and there are about 15 lakh unbranded hotel rooms. Our requirement is at least twice that number today, even as we speak now. So which means that we will have to enable more investments to come. So I think to my mind, the idea is that for us, for the past 60, 70 years, we've not really built any new destination, except probably, Kevadia or Ambi Valley or Lavasa or something like that. We've not really built new destinations. But India also has a lot of destinations, like say, for example, Somnath, which has got this huge temple. But there's hardly any accommodation nearby. If you look at Tirupati, 60,000 to 1 lakh people go to the temple every day. But there are less than 1 lakh, 10,000 hotel rooms in Tirupati itself, which means that people are coming, doing darshan and going. Why don't we make them into overnight tourists, into people who spend 2-3 nights there, build attractions around. So I think that is the challenge. Today, India is probably largely a sightseeing, a destination. People go look at the Taj Mahal, etc. And he also alluded to how Kerala is an experiential destination. How do you get people out? How do you get people to immerse culturally, into India? I think there are these large areas that we need to work on. So one of the things that the Honorable Prime Minister said last year is that he said one state, one global destination. And the reason is that we have been doing this incremental support to destinations over several years, and that is really not adding up to much because the effort gets dissipated. So his thing is, let's reverse it now. Let's identify 50. Let's pick them up on challenge mode. Let's put money, and we've in our note we've said let's put 500 crores into each of these destinations, and let's try and make them world class. If those become world class, I think what the country really needs today is inspiration, not so much the money. There is money, 500 crores today is not of such a big order for. But if we are able to do things for world class and demonstrate that this is possible in India, I'm sure that there will be several states who are ready to pick up the gauntlet. Of course, who understands it better than my mentor?
Thank you, Mr. Birla. So I think for the industry in the room, the 50 mission mode destinations which have been chosen can be a great opportunity where we can build a group of stakeholders that work with you specifically on supporting you on that. Both of you touched on storytelling and soft power, and Mahima, let me come to you on that. All the ladies in the room, I can say, have all watched Emily in Paris, and there's a whole narrative around how tourism returned to Paris after that super hit. So how are you all thinking about that for India? And, if you could speak a little to that.
Yeah, thank you. So I think you've hit on the crux, Negi. When we look at a platform like Netflix, when we launch a show in any particular country, and let's use India as an example, the day you launch in India, it launches in 190 countries at the same time. And increasingly, based on the demand from different markets, we are automatically subtitling and dubtitling in a number of languages. So we find that people are watching Indian content increasingly all over the world. Now, we've noticed this, as you mentioned, Emily in Paris, right? I mean, Emily in Paris became such a sensation that when they made Emily go to Italy, like she spent her entire summer in Rome, President Macron actually said, please bring her back to Paris because the tourists are going to Rome instead. It's funny, but it's real because that's where the tourism, like they follow these characters that they love. So when we have done internal research, when we have realized that, our titles are actually moving people into tourism destinations, we realized that storytelling when they connect with like a season of something or a character or something, their decision to go to a place for a holiday actually goes up. You know, it's an emotional connect. I'll give you more tangible examples. There is a show called Bridgerton. I don't know how many people are aware of it, but again, it was one of those, you know, it's a show from the UK, became a global sensation. It brought in $5 billion, Bridgerton, the show, in tourism, right? Now, everybody knows about K content, right? There is a show called, I mean, of course, everyone knows about Squid Games. So I won't bother telling you that Squid Games made K content very popular. But specifically, there was a show called When Life Gives You Tangerines, and the location where it was shot, called Jeju Island, suddenly blew up. So we have many, many examples like that. We've got examples from Italy where if friends from Airbnb are here, they'll be able to corroborate. Suddenly the Airbnb bookings went up in this little town in Italy. So what we as Team India, Netflix India, you know, we have a wonderful catalog that we have made, but I don't think we put our mind to saying, how can we use this catalog to showcase India? And so to your point, you know, we're looking at the global traveler. We're trying to see how can we make them connect with the stories of India so that their choice is to come to India for a holiday. So this is a bit of a small start, I think, from our point, which is through the year we'll have themes, wildlife being a theme, and you can imagine we shoot a lot in MP. But I'll just connect back with one thing that you said, sir, which is for us to go and shoot in new locations, just the way that you are developing new locations for tourists to come, we need that infrastructure, because when we shoot a considerable part of a movie or a series, we need to take like a whole town with us, right? You need all the hotels and the taxi cabs and the infrastructure to be able to shoot over there. So I think this story kind of goes hand in hand. And so, you know, we want to make that big India moment happen. I hope it's a new location and not just Kerala or, you know, another place that we are all familiar with, but we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, Mahima. Let me link to an important point. And Mr. Kant, obviously you're talking a lot and you're a big champion for sustainable causes. Your book is on climate change significantly. As we throw in money, as we're developing these cities, one thing we often are remiss in is the sustainable aspect of it. Both, I think, cleanliness and sustainability become a huge driver of perception for this country as we attract, especially the kind of tourists that you described in your opening. So would love to get your thoughts on how we should be thinking a little more about this and how we can embed this into our policies.
So first is that you can't have one experience inside of a fancy, jazzy resort, you know, people coming in and experiencing a lovely hotel, great experience, and stepping out and being confronted with garbage and filth. Just not feasible. My first advice to someone would be that don't fund any state with this 500 crore till they've not cleaned up the city. You need to get the drainage, the sewage, the solid waste, the quality of air fixed right first. That is critical. And that will only happen if the challenge route clearly envisages that this needs to be cleaned up. If we can't clean up 50 cities, then there's something wrong with municipal governance. So that to my mind is absolutely critical. Several places, you know, I've been to in recent times, you have great experience inside the resort, but outside the cities, wild, reckless construction, no drainage, no sewage, all that needs a massive cleaning up. The experience of India must be clean and tidy, and it must be, you know, it must be about spiritual invigoration, but it also must be in terms of mental rejuvenation. You can't have, when you step out, you can't be confronted by garbage and filth. That's not possible. So that must become a way of life for all Indians if we have to attract tourism. The second point I want to make is that, you know, getting a visa to India is still complex. You know, even the e-visa, is checking up too many details. So I would advise the Ministry of Tourism to work with the Ministry of Home Affairs, make it very simple, very easy. We've got the e-visa done. We've now scrapped those filling up of forms, etc. We need to make the experience of filling up visa very simple for tourists coming into India. Very easy and simple. Those are two critical things to my mind. But a lot of this responsibility of tourism really, you know, lies with the state governments. At the end of the day, it's a concurrent subject. India can grow, you know, if our ambition is to move from $4 trillion to a $30 trillion economy, It can't, and you need to create jobs with growth. So if you want to create the multiplier impact of tourism is so enormous that the growth with jobs can only come from tourism. You need to put it into the minds and heads of these politicians that if you want jobs, the only thing they'll understand is not tourism, they will not understand growth, but they'll understand job creation. So if you say that you're going to create jobs and you're going to win the next election, and the only answer to you is tourism because it has a huge multiplier impact on handloom, handicraft, guides, chefs, etc., cuisine, all I mean, I saw this. The challenge for me was to do God's own country with a communist government and to make they had already killed industries in Kerala. Now to make them aware that tourism is creating jobs, we got the tourism satellite account done with TCS and that showed that actually the multiplier impact of tourism and job creation is so enormous. It creates, and it was creating jobs for women. That's when the communist government realized that actually tourism is the sector to go in for and plug it, and that's how they accepted God's own country. They kept providing higher and higher outlay for tourism. That's how the branding, marketing happened, and that's how the experiential tourism product was built up by the private sector. So my view on that is that great experiences will be created by private sector, but it's important to clean up the cities, but drill it into the mind of politicians that is going to create jobs. And even when the Prime Minister was Chief Minister of Gujarat, he did this great campaign with Piyush Pandey on Padharo Hamare Desh. So I think we need to tell him that marketing needs marketing needs to be done. It's enormous, it's important, but we need to push the states into doing some of these things.
I know our friends from VFS are here, and I know we've had this conversation many times on why can't the experience of the visa in India begin from the minute you step into their office for your visa. It's a very simple thing, but it's about bringing all our organs of government together to kind of make it happen. But again, there are lots of low-hanging fruit, which I think we can definitely push on. Mr. Billa, picking up from where Mr. Kant left off, really, how are you all bringing the communities into it? If you want to just focus even on your plans for these 50 top destinations, because sustainable piece will be extremely important going forward.
So I think for India, where we are, if we do not follow, sustainability is not a desirable option. It is inevitable for us. Because most of our tourist destinations today, if you go to any of the hill stations during the summer, you will realize that they are hugely underperforming. So essentially what this means is that the destination is not living up to the promise that it holds for the tourists. Somebody decided to go to Munnar for their wedding anniversary. They spent 7 hours in the car and reached the hotel in the early evening, and they left the next morning because they had the anxiety of having to reach back. So these are issues that we have, and I think which is why under the 50 destinations there are 2-3 things. The first is that Mr. Kant has said about cleanliness. So there's a clear carve out in this. When you do a destination, the first thing that you need to do is how do you ensure that the tourist experience across all touch points. And cleanliness and hygiene is a very important part of it. And there's a 200 crore rollout for that. And you need to demonstrate, and not just, there is dirt today, I go clear it, and then from tomorrow I go back to the same habit. But you have to institutionalize it, in which case, I have to have a program to do it. I have to have the infrastructure, the operations and management to support all of that. And of course, one of the things that we've also said is to sort of insulate the selection process. We've said that Mr. Kant should also be on the committee to select those destinations along with people of eminence, so that it's not something that is just decided within the government on the basis of what we see, but it should also be tested. The second is we have said that the private sector should also come as a part of the bid. It's not just that the state government comes and says this is what I'm interested in doing, but we're also interested in seeing that they go to the industry and they make a joint proposal saying that we understand that this proposal is good and these are the areas where we would be interested in investing. So I think from a US IPF point of view, as I said, there's a huge demand-supply gap, and I think these 50 destinations probably marks a very clear pathway to enable investments to come into the tourism sector. In any destination, you would always be looking at, if I make this investment, where is the demand going to come from? In India, the demand already exists. It's about, what needs to, sort of come next. So I think if we do ease of doing business, we do everything else, things will come around. And the most important thing that you spoke is about community. Because if we do not involve, and I think Kerala tourism does well only because of that one factor, because we have spread the tourism economy beyond the hotel and the tour operator into the local communities that are there. And I think if we are able to do that, they automatically become stakeholders. Then they become the biggest supporters of the sector. And I think the biggest value that comes out of it is the fact that they create experiences. So today, if you go to a small village like Kumaragam in Kerala today, we have something called the village life experience, where people go on this immersive trip. There's a toddy tapper who shows them how he taps toddy, gives them a little glass. There's somebody who does fishing, organic farming. So all of that is immersive. So I think, and to the point that Mr. Kant spoke about jobs, I just came from the Parliamentary Committee on Demand for Grants. So the first slide that I showed them was that tourism sector contributes 5.2% to the nation's GDP, but it contributes to 13.37% of the nation's employment. That's 89 crore jobs. And that is only level one. The level two is on activating livelihoods, because it's not just direct jobs and indirect jobs. It's about livelihoods. How can I create services around the tourism economy into which I can get intertwined, like what the Responsible Tourism Mission has done in Kerala. So I think if we do that, we will probably truly be able to enable the experiential side as well, because it's not just a nice, pretty hotel, but it's also about how we will look into the heart and mind of the community. And of course, lastly, on what Mahima has said, we fully understand the context in which she spoke about the power that cinema has and TV has, because Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings have really created tourism destinations out of nothing. So we are hoping that through our MOU with Netflix, we will eventually get there. But also the campaign has become very, what worked earlier is not going to work today, because it's no longer linear. Mr. Khan spoke about social media, because there are 100 others who are saying the same thing, good things about India, as I would say through my ad. How do I harness, how do I amplify those voices? How do I make them work for me? How do I build these, unusual partnerships with, say, Netflix on product placement, with destinations? How do I work with, say, Royal Enfield to explore India on the road? How do I, work with Tata Tea on plantations, Fab India on fabric? So I think these are all things that we need to think. And I think the entire fabric of what we need to do on how to position the country is probably undergone significant change. And I think that is something that we need to do a lot of brainstorming. And I fully appreciate what Mr. Kanta said, because probably the single most important thing that you need when you run a campaign is to be agile, to understand where is the market and hit it while it is hot. And when you bring it into the government, you're always restricted by the general financial rules, you're restricted by L1 and, so all of that. So I think we need to find a mechanism in which we take this onus of decision making outside of the government, not to say that the industry should spend the entire money, but there must be a partnership, because unless you pay, you will not have a voice. And I think that is something that we need to sort of start envisaging together.
Thank you for that. Mahima, let me come to you on really as you sell India within Netflix. And especially, even Bollywood, I mean, they're very used to their structure of doing their movies in locations that they're comfortable with. How do you push the boundaries on that? And what are some of the roadblocks which are holding you back or holding back the producers and the directors from exploring some of these new destinations?
Yeah, thanks, Nevi. So, I mean, firstly, I'll just add my thoughts to the idea that attention is very divided, right? And so everyone's competing for that same person to come visit their country or their city. But what is equally true is you can spend the entire Saturday night binging a show, right? So it's like you say that you're doom scrolling or your attention's divided, but you do know that if you like a story, you can get into the story. So to that point, one of the things that we are doing with our partnership. So one is what we showed you today, which is like what already exists. Can we take that and sort of repackage it a little bit and promote it outside to certain people? The second part is, what Sir was saying, which is we are oversubscribed. One of our first meetings we spoke and he sort of told us, he said there are so many destinations in India which are now oversubscribed. Everybody wants to go there. And so, there is this whole undertaking of saying, how can we unlock new destinations? So equally, when we are sort of talking about this with our company internally, you say that, we are working with tourism. They are telling us all these wonderful places that exist. And can we organically integrate some of these new places into our storyline. And so a very, practical example of this is if he was to propose to his girlfriend. Would you do it at a, lake that everybody knows about, or would you go and find a new destination and everyone says, oh my God, what's that place? Because that's what we're hoping to do. The practical limitations are, see, when we are shooting in any location, we have states that come to attract shoots. Madhya Pradesh is a really good example of a state which has got all the right incentives and we do have infrastructure. There are many states like that. So what we do need is like really good policies in terms of production incentives so that we spend more time in a particular state and shoot over there. And there are criteria for that, which of course is a system that works. And states are sometimes competitive with each other on that. Along with those incentives is, as I mentioned earlier, the infrastructure required. So if we have a conversation, I'll give you a don't shoot this in Jaipur. Why don't you go outside and shoot it in this other place which is not known? The calculation that might come back to us is, well, I've got these two talents that cost me this much money, and to put them in a car for 3 hours to do that shoot makes it 2 days. And if I were to just do it in one location. So I think, infrastructure makes a really big difference for us to be able to actually organically get new locations into it. But I think the intention is to try to do that and to really start building a demand for new places in India. I mean, many of us grew up with Dil Chahta Hai and we bolted to Goa the moment our parents allowed us to leave the house without them. So, we know this is possible. And so that is really the mindset with which we're approaching this partnership.
Thank you. I know we're completely out of time. Mr. Kant, I'll come to you for just one last question. You're advising a lot of investment firms, and I know hospitality has been a sector where private equity and others have thought about putting investments, some good, some bad. Share your views on how you're thinking about this sector, and is it a green signal from your side?
So, I advise people on how to take India from $4 trillion to $30 trillion economy. Tourism can't be looked as only tourism. Tourism grows when India grows, when highways grow, when railways expand, when the cities, there's good urbanization, when the quality of experience is good, tourism will boom automatically. We must understand that there's a multiplier impact of the growth of India on tourism. If you say that I'm going to create a center of excellence only for tourism, that's not possible. After all, you need great airports. You need great airlines. You need great guides. You need brilliant hotels. Marriott's have done a brilliant job in India, and similarly many other chains have after they've come into India. But Marriott is just about 100. How many hotels do you have now? 200. That's you should be doing 2,000 in India now. So my view on that is that when India grows and expands in a big way, you will have better connectivity, you'll have better airlines, we have to work on more and more airports, more and more connectivity, more and more guides, more and more great experiences, and many more resorts and hotels. All that will have a multiplier impact on tourism. You can't say that I'm going to advise only one chain. It's the entire growth story of India which has to propel India to higher levels of tourism growth.
Well, thank you for bringing our conversation to a close. I think that's a very important part for us all, and I think the stakeholders in this room belong to the entire ecosystem, Mr. Kant. Mr. Billa, Mahima, thank you all for being here, and I wanted to just share with all of you the tourism report that we launched earlier today before we wrap up. Thank you.